Hey everybody, another GMG review. Today I'm taking a look at Warhammer 40,000 Crusade, the new mission pack Containment, which goes along with this guy right here, which is the Warzone Octarius new battle book, which you can check my review out for today as well. And are kind of complementary because this is interesting. They've split some stuff up. In the first one of these campaign packs, which was the one for the Necron campaign that initially launched with 9th edition, most of what made it thematically Necron-y for the not the Damocles Gulf, the Trip in the Rift, whatever it was called, the zone that we were in, was in the actual Crusade book. So all the Necron-y artifacts and stuff that kind of made it Necron themed was all in there. I almost got it. It came back for a second and then I lost it while I was talking. They're actually contained in this book this time around. So if you're looking for the specific Tyranid and Cadian Crusade rules, they're in the Warzone Octarius book. All the cool agendas and artifacts and stuff, they're in this section here at the back. Oh, I almost had it. Nexus, I think is what it was called. Nexus. They're in here. So the Crusade rules are actually in this book this time around as opposed to being in the Crusade book. And that's, I think, actually a good thing because this is a much more open-ended, any faction can do it Crusade pack for something called Planetstrike. And there was actually a Planetstrike supplement for 40k many moons ago that added the ability to do planetary attacks. I think it was 4th or 5th edition 40k. And the idea was that you typically play, so like let's say this is your gaming table, you play games of 40k this way, or you play them this way, or you play them this way. In Planetstrike, you play them this way, coming down onto the planet. And so by removing sort of the faction-specific stuff from here and focusing on a way of playing the game instead of the factions that are represented in that sort of like campaign, this is a much more, I think, accessible book for the games. So what changes in this? Well, in a Planetstrike mission pack, you're going to have your usual Crusade rules. So you're going to play Combat Patrol, Incursion, Strike Force, and Onslaught. But the Attacker and Defender mustering is quite different. You get to muster your army from your Crusade list, right? But the Attacker's army has some restrictions. Outrider and Vanguard attachments in the Attacker's army gain the following command benefit. +3 command points if your Warlord is part of the detachment. And then Spearhead detachments in the Attacker's army have a command cost of 4 instead of 3. But unless otherwise noted, you cannot include a fortification network in your army because you're the attacker. You're coming from the sky typically or attacking an entrenched position. The Defender's army gain the following, which is +3 CPs if a Spearhead detachment is part of your has your Warlord in it, basically, so heavy support detachment. And Outrider detachments cost 4 CPs instead of 3 because you're a defensive army. You're not running out into the field. And also the first fortification network detachment is at 0 CPs. And you can take one in addition to the number of detachments allowed by your game size. So even playing a Combat Patrol, you get to have a fortification network and it doesn't cost you any CPs. Plus, for your game size, you get an additional number of power to spend on fortifications. And again, that is why the fortifications all got redone in this book, I assume, so that you can take things like Aegis Defense Lines, Bastions, the Fortress of Redemption, or what have you as part of your army. So you get bonus power basically on top of your army size in order to take defenses. Now, don't worry, the attackers are going to get some stuff too, and it's called a Firestorm. If you're playing Combat Patrol, obviously you have to take a Combat Patrol as your detachment unless you're playing Knights, and these rules apply no matter what the game size. So interesting. I like that it restricts your detachment styles. It kind of tailors you into making a certain army. When you're playing Crusade, that can make the games feel way more interesting and narratively driven. You're going to get 3 Combat Patrol missions, 6 Incursions, 6 Strike Force, and I think it's 6 Onslaught as well. And then you get your agenda rules. The rest of this is standard sort of like Crusade boilerplate. Except for declaring reserves and transports, the attacker, unless stated otherwise, no more than 2/3 of your total number of units can be in reserve and or reinforcement units. And the combined power ratings of all the attacker's strategic reserves and reinforcement units must be less than 2/3 of the attacker's power level. So instead of half, you can have 2/3 in there. It costs the attacker 0 CPs instead of strategic reserves, so all your reserves don't cost you any CPs. And the attacker's reinforcement units cannot be arrived in the battlefield in the first battle round unless otherwise stated. Each time one of the attacker's strategic reserve units wishes to arrive, they must pass a reserve roll. That's following later on, you'll see how that works. And when they arrive, they can use shock tactics. And then the defender, unless otherwise stated, no more than 1/3 of your total number of units can be in reserve or strategic reserve. And then where is it? Sorry. Even if the unit in the defender's army has an ability that would allow it to be set up elsewhere, you can't do it, and exclude units with the fortification battlefield role when calculating this. So you can be in strategic reserve or transports if you're inside a fortification, because obviously you get a bunch of free ones. And then each time one of the unit's defenders the strategic reserve wants to arrive, they have to make a roll, and it's different for both sides. So the idea here being that you are a fast-moving strike force, but you are a slow-moving defensive force. Then you deploy your armies, and you play the game. One disappointing thing, once again, these are the Crusade steps to play a mission. They put the core rules in here. They didn't put the strategic or the Crusade rules in here. I would have just liked to see the core basic Crusade rules in here. I get that this gives you a core copy of the rules of the game, but like, if you're going to play Crusade games, it doesn't give you all the match play missions. It doesn't devalue the core book by having those Crusade rules reprinted in the Crusade section, because you're not putting in the match play stuff, you're not putting anything else. Just give the Crusade step by step. Give the battle honors and give those 10 extra pages. It would add a ton of value to these books, and people would actually be able to play Crusade games out of one purchase. I mean, you get the step by step, like take out of action tests and all that, but you don't get your battle honors and your experience and stuff in here. All right, Planetstrike mission rules, reserve rules. So the reserves for the attacker can actually arrive in the first battle round if they're units with the fast attack, dedicated transport, or flyer battlefield rolls, but it's on a dice roll of 3+. Other units, it's on a 4+. Second round, 2+, and then 3+, and then it's automatically on the third round, and 2+ on the other units that aren't fast attack, dedicated transport, or flyers. So the idea here being that you're being disrupted. You're doing a planetary invasion. So you don't necessarily get stuff exactly when you want, but the certain unit types that you are taking are more or less likely to show up in the battlefield when you want them. The defender can never have reserves arrive in the first turn. 3+, 4+ for the fast stuff or the other units, and then 2+, 3+, then automatic later on. So the idea here being it shifts the emphasis on the strategic reserve and the sort of like deep striking stuff to the attacker. And you have to pass a reserve roll, otherwise you stay until the next round. Now the attacker can use shock tactics, the defender can't. In the first battle round, attacker strategic reserves units are set up wholly within 6 of their battlefield edge. If the attacker's strategic reserve units are infantry, beasts, swarms, or can fly, it can be set up anywhere in the battlefield that's more than 9 from the enemy. So you can only really deep strike or be in strategic reserve if you are like super deep strike if your infantry, beasts, swarms, or can fly. So like your jump packs and all that stuff can show up. Your teleporting terminators can still show up anywhere in the battlefield. But like your guys in transports need to actually show up on your battlefield edge. And then you get a Firestorm, and this is neat. I like the Firestorm rules. So based upon how many power of your defenders like battlefield sort of like terrain they took, you get an equal but opposite amount of like orbital bombardments. And so you resolve this by, after everything's deployed, you take 6 D6s and you put them anywhere on the table not within 9 of each other. So typically you're going to put them around your opponent's army. And then you get to make a number of D6 rolls equal to the amount of power your opponent spent on fortifications. So if they took a 10 or less power, it's D3 rolls. And the idea here is there's an orbital bombardment coming down. It's going and applying in these 6 different spots. And so each Firestorm attack, and so basically the bigger the game, the more of these you're going to get. So if they spent 20 power in like a incursion game, you're going to get D3 plus 2 of these rolls. If they spent 30 power, you're going to get D3 plus 3, 40 power, D3 plus 4, and so on and so on. So, and those free points that they get count towards it. So the idea is you're balancing the free points by like this of like fortifications by this orbital attack that you're making. And then you roll the D6 to see where it lands, one of those dice. And if you're within 3 of the center of it, you take D3 plus 3 mortal wounds. If you're within 4 to 6 of it, you take D3 mortal wounds for each attack. So the idea is that these huge like planetary mass drivers are like impacting the planet when it goes off. So I like that. Before the first battle round, before the first turn begins, it goes off. And it's more dangerous the closer you are to the center of it. Now, your cult markers for your Gene Stealer cult can take damage, and the markers themselves, the ambush markers, accrue the mortal wounds, and when you reveal them, then you immediately apply the mortal wounds to whatever the unit is. But they also allow you to buy subterranean defenses, so if you're defending with Gene Stealer cults, you can dig yourself deep, and for 1 CP, you can have the number of mortal wounds they take, because you've basically like gone into like a bunker or a shelter or whatever. And then you start the game. You're playing for planetary control. In Planetstrike missions, if the player controls an objective marker in their command phase, it remains under their control even if there's no models in range of it. And at the start of the battle, all objective markers are controlled by the defender. So basically, the whole table is controlled by the defender at the start of the game. And if you walk away from it, you still control it until an enemy shows up and takes it away from you. So planetary control is basically AOS objective control, but with the defender always starting to default be in control. And then strongholds. In Planetstrike missions, objective markers can be placed within transport buildings. Only one objective marker can be placed within each building, and if the objective marker is placed in a building, it gains the stronghold keyword. The following rules apply to a stronghold. The stronghold counts as objective marker during the battle and can be controlled as such. Any rules that apply to the unit while they're within range of an objective marker apply if they're within range of a stronghold. Like other objective markers in Planetstrike missions, they start in control of the defender, and models that are embarked within a stronghold are counted towards the number of models the player has within range of it. If any of these units have the objective secured ability, then that player controls the stronghold, even if there are any more models in range of that stronghold. So if both players have models with the objective secured ability within range, it becomes besieged, and a besieged stronghold is no longer controlled by either player, but at the end of the battle, all besieged strongholds belong to the attacker. So even if you don't lose them for scoring points, they flip at the end of the game and become besieged. And if a stronghold is destroyed and the model is removed from the battlefield, then any units that were marked within the stronghold units are set up in the battlefield. The attacker first sets up the objective marker as close as possible to the center of where it was, and then set up the units. If the stronghold model is not removed from the battlefield, treat it as a wreck and as one large objective marker for the rest of the battlefield instead. So basically, and the missions will dictate how this works. If you have if you deploy a stronghold on top of it, then you can turn your objectives, the strongholds, into objectives, which is kind of a neat thing. You get attacker stratagems, rapid drop assault. Use a stratagem in your charge phase before declaring a charge from a unit that arrived during strategic reserves. If it's infantry, beast swarms, or fly, each time you make a charge roll additional d6 and discard a d6. So you can like go hard and try and make your 9-inch charges by dropping extra dice and discarding the lowest. Scorched Skies for 3 CPs. Use it when you launch your Firestorm. Make an additional Firestorm attack if you're playing Strike Force or, Incursion or Combat Patrol, and D3 if you're playing a Strike Force or Onslaught. So the bigger the game, the more additional ones you get for 3 CPs. Darken the Skies for 2 or 3. Use it sort of the battle round until the end of the battle round. Each time a range attack is made against a target unit that's more than 12 away, you're -1 to hit. You can only use a stratagem twice during the battle. If it's the first time you're using a stratagem, it's 2, otherwise it costs 3. So basically you can make yourself like super hard to hit by blotting out the sun with your spaceships. Techno Spirit Curse for 1 or 2. Use stratagem at the start of your opponent's shooting phase. Select a building on the battlefield. Till the end of the turn, each time it makes a ranged attack, subtract 1 from its hit roll. If it's Titanic, it costs 2, otherwise it costs 1. So the Forced Redemption, you can slow it down for 2. And then Ground Observer, use stratagem during the Firestorm attack after rolling to determine which Firestorm marker is hit, or in your movement phase after you failed a reserve roll. If you use a stratagem when resolving a Firestorm attack, you can change the result of the d6 roll by 1 or -1, plus or minus, and you can modify it to become a success. If you use a stratagem in your movement phase, that reserve roll is considered to have automatically been passed. So you can increase your Firestorm basically with your Observer, or you can make yourself bring on the unit automatically. You can use it twice if you're using an Incursion mission, in which case you can use it 4 times in a Strike Force mission or 5 times in an Onslaught mission. Heavy Duty Troops, this is if this uses stratagem in your movement phase when a vehicle or monster unit arrives, excluding Titanic units. Before setting them up, they can be set up anywhere in the battlefield more than 9 for the enemy. So basically, heavy duty drop, your vehicles that normally have to be within 6 of a table edge can come in anywhere outside of 9 because you have a flyer drop in and like hot drop it out of the back of it, or you like parachute the Rhino in. High Yield Firestorm, use a stratagem when resolving a Firestorm attack before rolling to determine which Firestorm marker is hit. When resolving that Firestorm attack, each building unit within 6 of the center takes an additional D3 mortal wounds. And then Laser Burn, using your command phase, place 3 Firestorm markers or dice numbered 1 to 3 anywhere in the battlefield, such that they're all 3 within 12 of each other. At the start of the next command phase, roll 2 D3s, draw a straight imaginary line between the 2 corresponding Firestorm markers, and then roll a D6 for each unit that has the line cross over them, adding 1 if they're a building. On a 2 to 5, they take a D3 mortal wounds. On a 6, they take D3 plus 3 mortal wounds. And the Firestorm marker is then removed. You can use it only once. So you can call a laser from the sky. So again, all this stuff is to balance out the fact that you have some disruption to your deep striking, but you can deep strike in the first turn. And you're getting to like have to break through your opponent's like line of free buildings and stuff. Defender Stratagem, 1 or 2 for rapid reinforcements using your movement phase. If you spent 2 on it, you can select 2 of your strategic reserves, otherwise 1, and they just show up. Coordinated deployment for 2 CPs, use it to start the first battle round after the attacker set up their Firestorm markers, but before they've launched their Firestorm. Select 3 units from your army and then redeploy them to get them out of the Firestorms. Foxholes for 2 CPs. Use stratagem at the start of the first battle round. After the Firestorm has been resolved, until the end of the battle round, all units in your army that are wholly within your deployment zone have light and heavy cover. And then targeting jammers for 1 or 3. Use them to start the first battle round after they set up the Firestorm but before they launch it. If you spend 1, you can select 1 marker. 3, you can select 2. You can move each of these Firestorm markers up to 2d6 inches in any direction, rolling separately for each, but they can't be moved off the battlefield. Drop zone denial for 2 or 3. Use start of any battle round. Select 1 battlefield edge that is not the attacker's battlefield edge. Until the end of that battle round, none of their strategic reserves can be placed within 6 of that battlefield edge. You can only use the stratagem twice during the battle. First time it's 2, second time it's 3. And then Stasis Trap, use it for 2 CPs. Use it at the start of the fight phase. Select 1 unit from your opponent's army that made a charge. They can't fight until all their units have fought. Directional Power Field for 1 CP. Use it at the start of the first battle round until the opponent launches the Firestorm, but before any Firestorm attacks are made. Select 1 unit from your army until the Firestorm is resolved. Each time they would lose a wound as a result of a mortal wound, and a 4+ is not lost. And then Crack Mines. Use it during your opponent's movement phase after they've set up a reinforcement or strategic reserve unit, wholly within the attacker's deployment zone. Sorry, anywhere in the battlefield not wholly within the attacker's deployment zone. Roll 3d6 for each vehicle or monster, and 1d6 for every other model. Roll for each roll of 5+, take a mortal wound to a maximum of 6, because you just lay out a bunch of Crack Mines. You only use it once. And then cool agendas like Death from Above, Desperate Last Push, a Planet Quake Bomb, Raise and Ruin. So like these are all the things you're trying to accomplish for an extra experience. Turn the tables for the Planetstrike defenders, repel the foe, coordinate defense, or define to the end. So things like define to the end of the battle, so long as you control at least 1 objective marker, each unit in your army that is on the battlefield, including units that are embarked on the transports, get an experience. So as long as you don't give up at least 1, you get an experience point on everybody. Battle traits that you can learn. And then here's a campaign, basically, using the Planetstrike campaign mission. So it's a ladder campaign, 3 stages, 3 games, and you can play through it. Another example, Planetary Invasion for Incursion and Strike Force, or Strike Force and Onslaught. And then all your missions. And what I love about them is look at the deployment zone. So like the defender's deployment zone, the attacker doesn't have a deployment zone because they're going to arrive during the course of the game. Vital Outpost, right? Relic. Attackers deployment zone, defenders evac zone, and then there's the deployment zones to try and get the relic out, evac under fire. Planetary assaults, these are incursion missions now. Rack and Ruin. And so you've got these great asymmetrical missions that are all designed around a defending force and an assaulting force coming down onto the planet. And they go all the way up to the giant ones, double-sized table ones, which are the Onslaught missions. And then a copy of the basic rules, right, through the fight phase. But once again, like I said, no campaign rules, unfortunately. Really wish they were in here. It would just be a nice little gimmick to be able to actually like see what your battle traits are and stuff for the generic ones. Rules glossary, and that's it. So there you go, Planetstrike, a new edition of Planetstrike after probably at least 10 years. You got a whole bunch of new ways of playing the game. So there you go. There's a look at Crusade Mission Pack Containment. What do I think? Well, I do like the fact that they've given some asymmetrical gameplay, and I like the separation of the specific rules from the sort of like army specific ones. But you can see more about that by checking out my Wars and Octarius Rising Tide review. Anyway, big thanks for watching. We'll see you for more of this in the future. Till then, I'm Ash. Have a good day. Hey there, I hope you enjoyed that video. There are tons of other games already recorded for you to watch. Click over to my channel page if you haven't already, and have a look through the dozens of playlists full of videos. I guarantee you'll discover a game you haven't seen played before. I put out new videos 7 days a week, and every day is themed to a different genre as I continue to explore the wider world of gaming. Of course, none of that's possible without you, the viewer, so click a like and subscribe if you'd like to stay on top of what's happening here daily. My 2 kids and I are massively grateful to be able to have the flexibility of this job so I can always maximize my time with them. If you want to support me continuing to put out this content, it's only possible because of my amazing backers on Patreon who support the studio, equipment, and model cost, as well as being how I make the bulk of my living. You can also help out by buying a t-shirt through Spreadshirt, a measuring gauge or widget from Desperate Designs, or buying one of my games and supplements like Last Days, Gamma Wolves, and Blaster. As a way of showing my appreciation, patrons get early access to new games and supplements that I write throughout the course of the year. Huge thanks for watching, it really does help out, and happy gaming.